This is Israel been Israel for the Israelite Brotherhood. Israelite Brotherhood. Israelite Brotherhood. I'm finna do a video. I'm finna do this video on the New Testament and how Hebrews confused about it. And how, the Babylonian scribes created that New Testament. Shalom, Hebrews. Us Hebrews, we'll believe in everything. And we should have been real suspicious. Should have been real suspicious when the plantation owner gave you Jesus. No matter what he's morphed into. No matter what he's morphed into, it's still the same. In the place of origin where we got it from is still to change. And that ain't gonna change. That ain't gonna never change. So you Hebrews that's stuck in that New Testament, I'm finna show you something. And if you trust in the Creator, you're gonna see this truth. You're gonna see this truth. Alright, Hebrews. It's a misconception about the timeline of the exiles. The exiles are the Hebrews, the only set of Hebrews that was taken from the promised land and took to Babylon. And they made it back in the book of Jeremiah. They're called the good figs, because the bad figs was the Hebrews. The bad figs were the Hebrews that broke the covenant, us, the 99% that went into Africa, Sahara, Egypt to worship the Egyptian religion. We said that the Egyptian religion was easier and that we did our best basically when we was on it. It's basically what we said, and we fled the promised land, going into Africa, and we never returned. That's the 99%. We never returned after the Babylonian captivity ended. And I want to show some Hebrews that the exiles that come home from Babylon, it wasn't nothing but a few of them. And how the tribes of Israel was among them. We was all one people. We was made one people by the prophet Ezekiel while we was in, Babylon. And he told us that, we will become one. And we became one. And we became one going into Africa. If you watch the other Israelite Brotherhood videos, then, you'll understand that. Okay, us Hebrews under the misconception that the exiles come home from Babylon and then lived in the promised land, and that they had such a good old time, and history just rolled, and they were so happy that they morphed into the New Testament people. And how the New Testament people, had a godson walking around that was going to save them or teaching them some truth, and how everything was going to be alright if you believe in him. Now, that's a far-fetched story, and that junk sound ridiculous and ludicrous if you analyze it and you understand history and understand what's going on. See, we Hebrews abandoned our history to some Babylonian scribes, some people that was responsible for Babylon's history, responsible for Babylon's God's history. And these people love to write stories and create false histories, and one of the main thing they loves is to create a godson. Oh man, they be so happy when they create a godson, and then they be even happier when they can create a godson and then pass him off as being real and legitimate. You see what I'm saying? And that's what happened and stuff. And us Hebrews that went into Africa and abandoned the covenant, we had left everything alone that concerned the covenant. That means the history, the books, and the following of the covenant in any form or manner. You see what I'm saying? When we went into Africa in the book of Jeremiah during the Babylonian wars. You know, the Babylonians, Ashkenazi, was sent. You know what I'm saying? That's like dealing with that New Testament. It's a vast history, and the people who constructed the history got like about some thousands of years. You know what I'm saying? They got 1900 years of fashioning the Jesus story in history, and then, you know, before then they had like another 1600 years on us Hebrews with writing history for governments and creating gods and all kind of stuff. But this is what I want the Hebrews to understand, is that was it any history on the exiles? Well, was it any prophecies for the exiles from Babylon? Was it any prophecies for them concerning them? Yes, it was. And in the prophecy that was given up about them come from the prophet Isaiah. He explained our whole captivity in detail. You know what I'm saying? Like I say, I got it on some of them other videos, but I'm going to go into this right here. And you Hebrews need to do some research. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to try to show you some things. And this is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. All right. Was it any proclamations or oracles or prophecies about the exiles from Babylon? And yes, it was. If you go to Isaiah chapter 6, this is before the Babylonian captivity. This is in 735 BC. This would be even before the Sephardic Jews get set up in the promised land, the Babylonian scribes. This is some years before them, but the prophet Isaiah knew everything because the Creator kind of like told him everything. And we was on the Egyptian religion during this time. You see what I'm saying? There was a lot of forces and a lot of people trying to get us up out the promised land so they can get our heritage. And they eventually got our old heritage because we was, tricked, into Africa to worship the Egyptian religion. Okay, this is the oracle. The prophecy about the exiles and what will happen to them. And if you go to the book of Isaiah chapter 6, I'm not going to read the whole chapter, even though it's important to read the whole chapter, but, I can show you this history easy, and we was in bad shape. And this is what, it's like, Ahaz and, was having trouble with the northern kingdom, and everybody was messed up. We was all messed up. And the prophet Isaiah had said this, and he said, "Go tell this people, hear ye indeed, but understand not. See ye indeed, but perceive not. Make the heart of this people fat, and make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert, and be healed." Then said I, "O Elohim, how long?" And he answered, "Until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and the houses without men, and the land be utterly desolate." Okay, that only happened one time in our whole history in the promised land. You know what I'm saying? When we got our inheritance after coming out of Egypt and we got into the promised land, it's only one time that the whole land was empty of Hebrews. And then that was during the Babylonian captivity, when the 99% ran into Africa to worship the Egyptian religion, and that little 1% or a tenth, it was taken to they was taken to Babylon. And then they come back in 538 BC. So we started to come home. And that's the book of Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. I'm going to go into some of these books, and I'm going to show you, and it's important to read them books and understand the timeline that they was written in, because that was our state of mind during that time. And when you read the exile prophet books, you'll see that the exiles was messed up real bad. And the enemies was throwing their women on them, putting their women on them. You know what I'm saying? Putting their women on them till they destroyed them. And the Greeks come in and just knocked them off so quietly. And like I say, we wasn't recording history. You know what I'm saying? Our history had stopped being recorded after the book of Malachi. And then it went blank. You know what I'm saying? It went blank. And then they try to come up 500 years later, around about 100 AD or so forth, when the New Testament books was constructed in between 50 AD and 100 AD. You know, 70 AD and 100 AD is when the New Testament was started to be constructed and stuff. And man, those were not, Hebrews in the New Testament. You know what I'm saying? When they constructed the New Testament, they was starting a story that was blank, going all the way back to, Malachi. And there was a lot of stuff went on then. A lot of people had came into the promised land. And I could show, if you look at some of the videos I could show how the Ptolemy and the Lichamas, these are Greek pharaohs, were claiming Israelite, identity. And they was claiming to be Israelites. And they even had one of their descendants, the Lichamas, as high priest over Israel. The Jews assassinated him, but nevertheless, ain't no Hebrew would have let, her build no temple. With no Hebrews, if Hebrews was in the land, they wouldn't have let her build no temple and then went and prayed in it, knowing that her was an Edomite and he wasn't supposed to be in our heritage. You can't find nowhere in Tanakh history where Edomite done took over and then build us temples for us to go pray and worship in. You see what I'm saying? So it's a lot going on in the New Testament, but this proclamation that the prophet Isaiah made show you that the exiles from Babylon was destroyed, and it was a call for them to be destroyed. The Creator know in advance. That's why come he said in the book of Jeremiah 31 on down, how we will get a new covenant, not like the one that our ancestors had, the one that we had break, going into Egypt to worship their religion. Okay, I'm gonna start this off. All right. And he said, go tell this people, hear ye indeed, but understand not. See ye indeed, but perceive not. Make the heart of this people fat, and make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert and be healed. Then I said, Elohim, how long? And he answered, until the cities be without inhabitant, and the houses without men, and the land be utterly destroyed. Okay, in the book of Jeremiah. In the book of Jeremiah, I'm gonna show that happened in 588 BC when we was chased up off the land. You know what I'm saying? If you go down to Jeremiah 44, verse 2. Jeremiah 44, verse 2. This said the Elohim of hosts, the Yah of Israel, ye have seen all the evil that I have brought upon Jerusalem and upon all the cities of Judah. And behold, this day they are a desolation, and no man dwelleth therein. You see what I'm saying? So, throughout the whole book of Jeremiah, he kept telling us that the land was going to be empty, that the land was going to be empty, and that the land was going to be empty. You know what I'm saying? And let me turn to some of these verses. Because he kept saying the land gonna be empty, the land gonna be empty. And sure enough, the land got empty of us Hebrews, because we said that we wanted to do Egyptian religion. So we was chased out the land. And we knew that it was gonna be a penalty for that. Because you can't, break the covenant and then think there's no penalty for it. You know what I'm saying? Trust ye not in lying words. Let me see. All right. Three. All right. This saith the Elohim of hosts, the Yah of Israel, amend your ways and your doings, and I will cause you to dwell in this place. See what I'm saying? Meaning that if you didn't do it, you was gonna get kicked out. All right, let me see. Jeremiah 4:7-28. All right. Stand up the standard toward Zion, retire, stay not, for I will bring evil from the north and great destruction. The land shall come and, you know what I'm saying, from this ticket, and the destroyer of the Gentile is on his way. He is gone forth from his place to make the land desolate, and the cities shall lay waste without an inhabitant. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, that come to pass. That came to pass big time when the Scythians came into the land. When the Scythians came into the land, and then they chased us out. You see what I'm saying? And the Scythians were nothing but Ashkenazi, and they settled in the Discopolis. Alright. Alright, so, you know what I'm saying? We was going to get kicked out the land. Gather ye up the wares of land, O inhabitants of the fortress. And for this said the Elohim, behold, I will sling out the inhabitants of the land at this once, and will distress them, that they may find his soul. And sure enough, that happened. You know what I'm saying? We was kicked out of the land, just like the prophet Isaiah said. All right, this Jeremiah 9:11. And I will make Jerusalem heaps and den of dragons, and I will make the cities of Judah desolate without an inhabitant. So what prophet Isaiah said, you know what I'm saying, come to pass during the Babylonian wars, and we was chased into Africa. If you go to 2 Kings, turn right to it. Shalom. All praise be to the Most High. Yeah. And all the people, both small and great, and the captains of the armies arose and came to Egypt, for they was afraid of the Chaldeans. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, we had to get up off the land, and we got up off the land. So what prophet Isaiah had said, you know what I'm saying, came to pass during the Babylonian wars. That's the only time that our land was desolate of Hebrews. Either you was taken to Babylon, that 10th, that 1%, or you was the millions, the 99% that ran into Africa, thinking that we was gonna hide from the Creator's wrath. You see what I'm saying? And we was enslaved. So, you know, those Hebrews that was taken to Babylon was still up under the covenant, whereas us that ran into Africa, we wasn't up under the covenant. The covenant stopped it immediately when we left our borders and went into Egypt. You know, the covenant stopped immediately when we said that we was going to worship the Egyptian religion, and that's all we wanted to do. So, you know, it was over with. You know what I'm saying, for them. But the ones who went to Babylon, they was given the chance, and they would have been the light of the world. But it couldn't be two sets of Hebrews, one doing the covenant in the promised land that came back from Babylon, and us, the 99% that's wicked. You see what I'm saying? Because the people in the New Testament mixed with Greeks, Romans. They was the byproducts of the Greeks, the Romans, and about 10 other nations that had pulled up. And I could prove that we wasn't them. All right. Then said I, Elohim, how long? And he answered unto the cities, be wasted without inhabitant, and the houses without men, and the land be utterly desolate. And the Elohim have removed men far away, and there be a great forsaking in the midst of the land. That's going to be us forsaking. The forsaking in the midst of the land is going to be this right here. Jeremiah. All right, it's going to be this right here. Jeremiah 44, chapter 44, verse 15, 16, 17, and 18. Then all the men which knew that their wives had burnt incense unto other gods, and all the women that stood by, a great multitude, even all the people that dwelleth in the land of Egypt and Pathros, answered Jeremiah, saying, as for the word that thou hast spoken unto us in the name of the Elohim, we will not hearken unto thee, but we will certainly do so whatever thing goeth forth out of our own mouth, to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, as we have done, we and our fathers, our kings, our princes, in the cities in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. For then had we plenty of food and were well and saw no evil. But since we left off to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven and to pour out drink offerings unto her, we have wanted all things and have been consumed by the sword and by famine. Well, no way to recover from that. Zero way to recover from that. So what prophet Isaiah had said, come to pass right then. This was during the Babylonian wars. All right. And then as you read down, but yet in it shall be a tenth, and it shall return. A tenth, I call it 1%. But in it shall be a tenth, and it shall return, and shall be eaten as a teal tree, and as a oak, whose substance in them when they cast their leaves. So the holy seed shall be the substance thereof. Okay, a teal tree. All right, if you understand what a teal tree is, a teal tree gonna be a tree that's isolated. A teal tree is gonna be isolated. Yeah. All right, that's the image of the teal tree. Isolated. You know what I'm saying? And if you read what the folks say, you know what I'm saying, that translated our history, man, about the teal tree, you'll see that it says, all right, this tree is seldom seen in clumps or groves, never in forests, but stands isolated and weird like in some bare ravine or on a hilltop where nothing else towers above it. The low branches of the bushwork. All right, so that teal tree is something that's isolated. You see what I'm saying? It's a tree that's by itself. You see what I'm saying? And that's the way the exiles were when they come back from Babylon. They was all in Jerusalem and in the cities of Judah, and they lived near Jerusalem, and they even had to, you know what I'm saying, to pick how many people go stay in Jerusalem to help try to rebuild the temple. And they wasn't everywhere, living everywhere. They only lived in one place. When the exiles come back from Babylon, the exiles, the Hebrews that was with them, the tribes of Israel, didn't go back to their other parts of their homeland and live like in the northern kingdom. Everybody was forced to live in one area, and that was in Judah's inheritance. You see what I'm saying? It was over with. And then they sinned so bad, the devil was even in the temple. Man, they had the Edomites and the other folks in the temple, man, where the priests then gave them spots in the temple, and they was partying up in there. The whole exile history is evil and wicked. And it's no way in the world that they could have passed that heritage off to the Greeks and the Romans. Made it with them, and then, because the people of today can specifically show that they are related to the folks in the Greek and Roman era. They got documents and genealogies and everything. That's like a whole lot of y'all Hebrews be real confused, and you be believing in the history that the Jews put out, the Babylonian scribes. See, they got a history that the Hebrews went, you know what I'm saying, all over everywhere, and during the Syrian time they went everywhere, and during the Babylonian time they come back home and they just had a good old time. Well, that's false history. That's like you Hebrews don't even know that, it was some history. It's history outside the New Testament. You know what I'm saying? That's like, for instance, this individual right here, Tigonus the Great. All right. Tigonus the Great would take over 10,000 Jews to Armenia. This is in 950, from 955 BC to 55 BC. You know what I'm saying? He took over 10,000 Jews to Armenia from Jerusalem, from Judah, from them parts. You know what I'm saying? And he took them to Armenia, and wasn't none of them black. You can't find no black culture there. You can't find no black settlements. And the Jews that's in Armenia are descended from the Jews that come from Jerusalem during Tigranes time. You see what I'm saying? And then that's like your boy Jesus. You know what I'm saying? I ain't even dug into the New Testament history yet. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot going on with that New Testament. And that's like the synagogues. You know what I'm saying? That's like one of the best jokes. One of the best jokes that's played on the Hebrews in the Hebrew community is that when y'all holler, the synagogue of Satan. The synagogue of Satan. Those who are Jews and are not, or however that old wicked mess go. Those who say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. And y'all be having a ball and stand stiff-necked and stiff-backed and everything when you confront folks and then you say that old crazy mess. Yeah, those are the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews and are not. And y'all think that them folks talking about some white people. Talking about some white people and that the real Jews are some black people. That's a joke played on you Hebrews. Don't y'all know that it was over 380 synagogues during the time of Herod Temple, and that the people that had the synagogues were the Scythians that settled in the promised land in Bethshan or in the whole Galilee area. You see what I'm saying? What they call the Discopolis cities. Yes, the Scythians, the people who made up the Chaldean army. The people who made up the Chaldean army, the Scythians, that ain't nothing but Ashkenazi. You see what I'm saying? And they settled in Scythopolis. You see what I'm saying? They settled in Scythopolis. And Scythopolis was one of their head cities. That's ancient Bethshan. You see what I'm saying? This is the Discopolis. And the head Discopolis city was Scythopolis. And Scythopolis is where the Scythians set up. And the Scythians wasn't nothing but Ashkenazi. You see what I'm saying? And those are the people that chased us into Africa in the book of Jeremiah. Well, they settled in the promised land. And then they got history showing this too. Them people got history showing this too, that the Scythians settled in the promised land. You see what I'm saying? And if you go to all right, and then it says biblical narrative according to the Hebrew Bible, around 1100 BC, the Canaanite Bethshan was conquered by the Philistines, and they go on to explain that history. And then when you get down to there, but then it said the Hellenistic period saw the reoccupation of the site of Bethshan under the name Scythopolis, possibly named after the Scythian mercenaries. They know it is. See, when you people reading history, you don't know that them people cover history up, that the Jews cover each other up, because if you understand one Jewish group history, then it's going to lead to the other Jewish group history, and it's like a domino effect. It's all fall down. So they both, when they writing history, because they've been controlling biblical history since we abandoned it, and when they write history, they make sure that they're going to look out for each other. You see what I'm saying? And they're not going to show each other as not being Israel, because they all related together. You see what I'm saying? They all in the bed together with our heritage. You see what I'm saying? So they not going to show you. They are not going to tell you the truth. They are not going to tell you the truth on their origin, because if they did, then it's like everything done fell down. They not trying to fall down and be subjected to the curses immediately by telling the truth. You see what I'm saying? So the Scythians were Ashkenazi. That's Ashkenazi code name in history. And if you look up Scythian, they gonna outright tell you that Scythians is the area of Ashkenazi, was in the area of the Scythians. You know, they real cold with word and stuff. You see them trying to mislead you that, yeah, they could be the same people or they might not be the same people. You see what I'm saying? That's because they trying to hide their heritage, because they know sooner or later that some of us going to get on the trail of what really happened to our heritage. See, you Hebrews that believe in the 10 lost tribes, or the Hebrews ran into Africa in 70 AD, or the Hebrews went down a water hole in Assyria, and all kind of old man stuff. Well, that's Jewish history. Those are myths that they created to cover up our history. You see what I'm saying? And the world basically, believe in those myths. But anyway, Scythopolis is going to be the head city of the Discopolis. That's where the Scythians settled at. And Jesus had people from the Discopolis, them Scythians, as his members. You see what I'm saying? As his members. Because some say that Jesus was a half-breed, and that his daddy name was Panthera. That's what the Jews have down. You see what I'm saying? That's what the Jews have down. That Jesus ben Panthera was his daddy. So that's gonna be a Roman. You see what I'm saying? And they're gonna have some Scythian in him. So that explained why Jesus was in those synagogues. You see what I'm saying? He was in some of the synagogues. Some of them synagogues and those Ashkenazi people gonna reject him, because during the time of us abandoning our heritage, the Sephardic Jews was in our heritage like 134 years before we went into Africa, and then we left our heritage to them, and then Ashkenazi come in. Well, those two groups gonna be fighting over the spoils of war, and that spoils of war, them fighting over, they created religions by proxy. All JCI, they created them to keep from fighting each other. You see what I'm saying? And as well as controlling those tribes that they, converted those people under. But the Scythians, the Scythians settled in the Discopolis, and the Scythians wasn't nothing but Ashkenazi that chased us into Africa, that made up the Chaldean army. They made up the Chaldean army, and I got history that I post all the time where those Scythians shot so many arrowheads at us that they still got them, and still finding them right now today. You know what I'm saying? And those people were settled in the Discopolis, and Jesus would have them as members. You see what I'm saying? Jesus would have them as members. Yeah, Jesus would have them as members. And if you read the New Testament, it's going to tell you that the people from the Discopolis were part of Jesus' membership. You know what I'm saying? They was part of his membership. And those are facts that ain't nobody going to be able to change. All right, Hebrews. Now, let's get into the New Testament. All right. When they be saying, those are the synagogue of Satan, and they are Jews, but are the synagogue of Satan, thinking that they talking about some white folks and calling the white folks Satan, not knowing that, you know what I'm saying, that all the people in the promised land was basically white. You see what I'm saying? And that is a misconception that the exiles made it over into New Testament time. You know what I'm saying? Because no Hebrew would have been down with build and herd temple. And them folks had synagogues. You see what I'm saying? The people that had synagogues, they was around. The synagogues was around doing her temple. And we know that Jesus was wicked, and it only should have been one place to worship. You see what I'm saying? It only should have been one place to worship, as the Creator had, said and outlined for us. You know what I'm saying? And he said that he'll give us one place to bring our offerings and everything. But yet, in the New Testament, they had synagogues, and they was worshiping everywhere. They was doing everything, and Jesus was part of that too. Now, these are the statutes. This is Deuteronomy 12. These are the statutes and judgments which ye shall observe to do in the land which the Elohim Yah of thy fathers giveth thee to possess it, and all the days that ye live upon the earth. Ye shall utterly destroy all the places wherein the nations which shall possess serve their gods. You know what I'm saying? Them Amorites and all them places where they serve their gods. We were supposed to destroy them and destroy their God's name. Yet ye shall utterly destroy all the places wherein the nations which ye shall possess serve their gods, upon the high mountains, and upon the hills, and upon every green tree. And ye shall overthrow their altars, and break their pillars, and burn their groves with fire. And ye shall hew down the graven images of their gods, and destroy the name of them out of this place. You know, it's the religion killer's oath right here too. Ye shall not do so unto the Elohim your Yah, but unto the place which the Elohim your Yah shall choose out of all your tribes to put his name there, even unto his habitation shall ye seek, and thither shall thou come. And thou ye shall bring your burnt offerings and your sacrifices and your tents and your have offerings of your hand and your vows and your free will offerings and the firstling of your herds and of your flocks. And there ye shall eat before the Lord Elohim your Yah, and ye shall rejoice all that ye put your hands unto and in your household, wherein the Elohim that Yah had blessed thee. And ye shall not do after the things that we do here this day, every man whatsoever is right in his own eyes. That's the way we are now. Every Hebrew think that they right in their own eyes, and they don't use the Tanakh history to be right and to build your foundation up under that. That's like it's a Hebrew got on one of these sites gonna say Jerusalem way somewhere in New Mexico. And man, get out of here with that mess, with that Jewish stuff. You see what I'm saying? You have all kind of Hebrews got all kind of philosophies in these days and times, and they don't know how to follow history, so they create history, or they'll read a book and get fascinated by it and spiritually motivated by it. Now they out preaching that garbage, and then come time to find out the whole times the Jews wrote their history. You see what I'm saying? So that's gonna be like that every single time that you come outside the Tanakh. All right, but the Creator gave us one place to worship, but yet in the New Testament, Jesus and them was worshiping and teaching everywhere. You see what I'm saying? So them wasn't no Hebrews. For as ye are not asked to come to the rest and to the inheritance which the Elohim your Yah giveth you, but when ye go over Jordan and dwell in the land which the Elohim your Yah giveth you to inherit, and when he giveth you rest from all your enemies round about, so that ye dwell in safety, then there shall be a place which the Elohim your Yah shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. Thither shall ye bring all that I command you, your burnt offerings and your sacrifices and your tenth and the heave offering of your hand and all your choice vows which ye now unto the day. So all the churches and everything that's today is illegal in Rome, based upon Tanakh history and Moses history. You see what I'm saying? So every single church and every single place where they call themselves worshiping is garbage. All right, and ye shall rejoice before the Elohim your Yah, ye and your sons and your daughters, and your manservants and your maidservants, and the Levites that is within your gates, for as much as he hath no part or inheritance with you. Take heed to yourselves that thou offer not thy burnt offerings in every place that thou seeth, but in the place which the Elohim shall choose in one of thy tribes, that thou shalt offer any burnt offerings, and there shalt thou do all that I command thee. So we know in the New Testament, if you go to man, it's gonna be Matthew's, that old Matthew devil. You see what I'm saying? It's gonna be that old Matthew devil. All right. Let me get the verse. Matthew. Yeah, so us Hebrews, man, we'll worship anything and we'll believe in anything. But when they was talking about them synagogues, when Jesus and them folks in the New Testament was talking about them synagogues, they was talking about the Scythians. The Scythians had settled in the promised land, and because they wasn't learned and they was trying to catch up, they built synagogues everywhere. And then they was starting to get their hands on some of them books. Some of them books them Edomites had, those Sephardi Jews had. You see what I'm saying? And that was one of the reasons why they had they people, they kin people, the Romans, to burn the whole temple down, So then they synagogues would be the only thing left standing that you have to go to and worship. Ashkenazi cold. You people do not know what's going on. I promise you, y'all don't know what's going on. When you believe in that New Testament, it's like you a little baby. Like you a little baby and stuff. And they know it too. Because ain't nowhere in the world that a Hebrew Israelite supposed to be waking up in bondage, still worshiping the God that the slave owners gave them. And it's a known fact that the slave owners gave us Jesus, or whatever Hebrew equivalent name that you want to give him. Yawashia, and all that old mess. You folks pure crazy. All right, look at this right here. All right. Synagogues. All right. And when he come into his own country, he taught them in their synagogue. Them in their synagogue. You see what I'm saying? He taught them in their synagogue. So these wasn't the same people, but these some people just trying to learn the biblical knowledge, the biblical history. You see what I'm saying? That's what all the temples and their synagogues is about. They're going to have a Tanakh up in there, and they're going to be going over and over it, trying to learn it and recite it. And that's all the Ashkenazi did, the Scythians, when they settled in the Discopolis. And Jesus used to go to their synagogues. You see what I'm saying? He used to go to their synagogues and try to teach them. You see what I'm saying? And when he come into his own country, he taught them in their synagogue, insomuch that they were astounded and said, whence had this man this wisdom and these mighty works? You see what I'm saying? All right. And then when you go to that Mark, let me see, what's that devil? Mark 1. Paul was a devil. Paul was none but a Greek Jew. And then when y'all say Paul was a Greek Jew, y'all thinking that, but he was half-breed and that he was white from the Greek part and that he was an Israelite from the other part. No, he was a Sephardim, because it wasn't no Hebrews in the land. It wasn't no Hebrews in the New Testament. That the exiles were destroyed by the Greeks. And I'm going to show this. I pray I got enough time to get this in. All right, so this going to be, all right. And they went into Capernaum, and straightway on the Sabbath day he entered into the synagogue and taught. So he steady pulling up at the synagogues trying to teach them, and they were astonished at his doctrine, for he taught them as one that had authority and not as the scribes. You see what I'm saying? Because it was the Babylonian scribes who had our history that translated the Old Testament, what they call the Old Testament, the Tanakh history. And I got proof throughout history, them folks created genealogies from the genealogies that we left from dealing with King David's house, and how they would create a genealogy off that. It's the only one that was left that was given whose son is who, coming from David all the way down. And being that they was in the temple and had access to the books, they created them a genealogy. You see what I'm saying? So it's like the exiles, when they come home from Babylon in 538 BC, they got destroyed so fast and so quiet, and them folks didn't record it. Don't you see how the Palestinians is over there going through what they going through? Well, just imagine all the nations against the exiles when they come home. All of them, and wasn't nothing but a few thousand of them. And then just imagine all the folks, hundreds of thousands of folks at them trying to destroy them. Well, they destroyed them, and they got knocked off so fast that by the time the Greeks come in, it was over with for the exiles. It wasn't no Hebrews left. Zero Hebrews in the promised land after the Greeks came. Zero Hebrews. No Hebrews. They had all got knocked off. They had all got killed. That's the only way that the Ptolemies and the Lycimists could have claimed an Israelite heritage, is that the exiles were destroyed. And then we know that King David's land ended in 420 BC. His last descendants was recorded, and then 500 years later, they gonna come with that Jesus genealogy that don't even match up with First Chronicles 3. We're gonna go into it. Alright, so we know a wicked Jesus taught in synagogues. You see what I'm saying? He was in the synagogues teaching them folks. Alright, man, yeah, man, he was in the synagogues teaching them folks. So how more wicked can you get than that? Than to be in the synagogue teaching them folks. 13:55. Alright. Matthew 12. 2. Yeah, so, you know, the exiles was destroyed. They didn't come back and get a chance to mix with everybody and then be all happy and then everything just kept rolling. You know what I'm saying? That didn't happen. Alright. Let me see. Yeah. Alright, well, let's go into, yeah, so it's a whole bunch of verses showing that Jesus worshiped in synagogues. Alright. If you know what I'm saying, if you, alright. Alright, Hebrew Israelites exiles from Babylon was destroyed real fast. Blank history other than what Jews wrote to try to fill in the gaps. 430 BC, the book of Malachi, last book, end of David line also. Greeks wrote up 332 BC. The Greeks, you know what I'm saying, the Greek killers show up 98 years later because they were sinning. And if you go to Ezra, let's get some of this, but first let's show that Jesus couldn't have been descended from these Hebrews right here. Impossible. Impossible. If you go to First Chronicles 3, and it goes into David's descendants, all the way down to verse 24, and that's in 420 BC. Anania gonna be the last person. You know, this the last groups right here in Eloni were Hadiah and Elishib and Peleah and Achab and Johanna and Dalilah and Anania. Those are King David's last descendants. After 420 BC, they was gone. They was over with. No more David's descendants. You see what I'm saying? No more King David's descendants. So we know that Jesus fella couldn't have been a descendant of King David because his history don't match up with that. You know what I'm saying? And then, like I said before, that Tigris the Great took over 10,000 Jews to Armenia, and none of them was black. And I dare one of y'all to go, anybody to go try to find some black communities in Armenia that's descended from those folks. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, that didn't happen. And then it is a known fact that, alright, let's see what this. MC, thou shalt say unto them, this saith to him, behold, I will fill all the inhabitants of this land, even the kings that sit upon David's throne, and the priests and the inhabitants and all of Jerusalem with drunkenness. So that was the end of King David land. You see what I'm saying? During Jeremiah time, and when the exiles come home, the ones that was descended from him lived all the way up to 420 BC. And then that was it. Now let's look at this here. That the Creator from Prophet Noah said that Ashkenazi would be in our inheritance. So when was this going to take place? This had to take place, you know what I'm saying, before long. I mean, if you go to Genesis 9, verse 27, and it says, behold, I will, no, let me see, 9:27. Thought it was 9. Oh yeah. Yah shall enlarge Japhet, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Well, Canaan ain't nothing but the Sephardi Jews, the Amorites, that are servant to the Ashkenazi people right now. To show you that Ashkenazi name was around during our time. If you go to the book of Jeremiah, and I think it's 51:27, you will see the Ashkenazi name is mentioned. So Ashkenazi had to be somewhere in history back then in order for their name to get mentioned. You see what I'm saying? Well, Ashkenazi gonna settle in the Discopolis cities. And Jesus and them used to try to take them into the temple where they couldn't go past a certain part. You see what I'm saying? They couldn't go past a certain part. Them folks had signs up saying that if you went past this part, them Edomites, that they was gonna kill you. And Paul and all them used to be mad about that because you had some Sephardi Jews that was mixed with Edom trying to bring Ashkenazi into the fold. You see what I'm saying? It was some Jews trying to be cool with them, with Ashkenazi that had settled in the Discopolis. And those were Jesus' members. This is where all his members come from. His members were Scythians, white folks. You see what I'm saying? And when I say white folks, I ain't saying it in a derogatory name. You know what I'm saying? I could say non-pigmented people, but I'm just going to keep it real. You know what I'm saying? And that's who he had as members. And if you look at, if you look at Jeremiah 51:27, you're going to see Ashkenazi name in there. You see what I'm saying? And he was even told to take over Armenia and Iraq. That's where Armenia is. And, you know, they was in Babylon. You know what I'm saying? And they had schools in Babylon too, just like the Sephardi Jews did. You know, one of their main ancestors were Nymphet Hayat Nymphet, and he the one that supposed to have slayed Nimrod. And Ashkenazi was in Babylon. And Ashkenazi was in Babylon after they done whooped the Syrians and then tricked them out their heritage. Well, those people came to the promised land and they settled in Beth Shean. You see what I'm saying? Beth Shean, in the Discopolis cities. All right, now let's get into some of the exiles history books. And then, you know, I'm going to show you. All right, Ezra. All right, if you read Ezra 2, you'll see that he mentioned Israel, the men of Israel, the people of Israel. That, you know what I'm saying, they made a distinction. They knew the distinction of the people that lived in Judah and Jerusalem and them areas, and then the people that lived in the northern kingdom. And as you get on down, you see that the men of Bethel was part of the northern kingdom. You see what I'm saying? That's where Jeroboam did his worship at, with the golden calf and all that stuff. Well, you know what I'm saying? Those people come back, and then as you read, you know what I'm saying, you're going to see Israel name mentioned everywhere. But also, look, these are the people that had moved into the promised land. These were scribes from Babylon. These were some real serious scribes that had moved into the promised land during the Persian times after Babylon was destroyed. These folks pulled up. Then Rum, the chancellor, and Shimi, the scribe, and the rest of the Danite, and their companions, the Danites, the Archiphites, the Tepelites, the Aphisites, the Achivites, the Babylonians, the Shushanites, the Hadivites, and the Elamites. You know what I'm saying? All those people was placed in the promised land. It was about a good 12, 13 nations of people that had moved into the promised land when it was empty, when we was gone into Africa, and that little tent was taken to Babylon. And then when they come back home to a land occupied, every inch of it. And then as you read, you know what I'm saying, Ezra, you know what I'm saying, you'll see, and the children of Israel which come again of the captivity, which all such as had separated themselves. You see, we had come back from the Syrian captivity and everything. You know what I'm saying? The Babylonian captivity, and those Israelites were at home. And they started sinning so bad that that's what made the Greeks come in and to keep the Passover unleavened bread 7 days with joy, and with the Elohim had made them joyful, and turned the heart of the king of Assyria unto them to strengthen their hands in the works of the house of Elohim. All right, you know what I'm saying? Israel name mentioned, you know what I'm saying? All throughout Ezra, you know what I'm saying? The tribes of Israel going to be mentioned. But this was what would get the exiles cut off. This is like 98 years before the Greeks show up. Now, when these things were done, the princes come to to me, saying the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the land, doing according to the abomination, even the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, and the Moabites, the Egyptians, and the Amorites, all of our enemies. All of our enemies that caused us to get kicked out the land during the Babylonian wars was feasting on the exiles. They was feasting on the exiles, and the exiles couldn't pass that heritage. They couldn't mix with them people, and then them other people become Hebrews. Because if so, y'all can't get mad at the Jews. You cannot say that the Jews are not Israelites. You can't point the finger at them, because they can say, we come off the exiles. We come off the exiles from Babylon. You see what I'm saying? But that's why the Greeks roll in. Anytime the Creator sent a nation or allow a nation to come into the promised land, it's because we sinned, or they was coming to free us. They was coming to destroy us, or they was coming to free us from a bondage that the people in the land had us under. It's no other way you know what I'm saying, about that. That's just the way it is. And that's biblical history. So them exiles mixing with those folks, you see what I'm saying, and trying to pass heritage over, it was over with. And then they tried to recoup and tried to separate themselves, but the sin was so bad and it was already done. You know what I'm saying? And as you read, Israel still in the land. Israel in the land. You know, as I showed, it wasn't no 10 lost tribes. You have to look at the other videos and see that it wasn't no 10 lost tribes. Okay, then when you get to the book of Nehemiah, man, it get real serious. Real serious. He was trying to straighten us up. He was trying to straighten us up as best he can. He was trying to straighten us up as best he could, but it was over with because we had sinned so bad. And then you will see that the children Israel was in, you know what I'm saying, was, you know what I'm saying, around, and that everybody had to live in Judah. You know what I'm saying? If you go to, and the rulers of the people dwelt at Jerusalem, the rest of the people also cast lots to bring one of 10 to dwell in Jerusalem, the holy city, and 9 parts to dwell in the other cities. And the people blessed all the men that willingly offered themselves to dwell at Jerusalem. Now these are the children of the province that dwelt in Jerusalem. But in the cities of Judah dwelled every one in his possession in their cities, to wit Israel. See, even Israel had to live in Judah cities and stuff. The priests and the Levites and the Nethinims and the children of Solomon's servants, you know what I'm saying, all of them had to live, you know what I'm saying, in Judah, because it's the only place we could live. The Scythians had took over the whole other parts, and the Babylonian scribes were sticking around Jerusalem because that's their old capital as Jebusites and Amorites. You know, the people that was placed in our land, they got our heritage, were from Babylon. You see what I'm saying? It was from Babylon. All right, see, and then as you read this, and the residue of Israel, of the priests, the Levites, were all in the cities of Judah, everyone in his inheritance. You see what I'm saying? So the Israelites was living in Judah when we come back from Babylon. You know what I'm saying? And then as you read this, man, the devil in the temple. Let me see. This is Nehemiah 13. Like a lot of bad stuff is in 13. A whole lot of bad stuff in 13. All right. On that day, they read in the book of Moses, in the audience of the people therein was found written that the Ammonites and the Moabites should not come into the congregation of Yah forever, because they met not the children of Israel with bread and with water, but hired Balaam against them, that he should curse them. Howbeit our Yah turned the curses into a blessing. Now they still being judged by that, and remember that way back then showed that we have to remember what our ancestors went through and how we still connected even this day and time, because they talking about some way back in Moses' days, 500 years, you know what I'm saying, past the exiles coming, you know, back to the promised land, you know, 500 years before that, and how they was still bringing it up. You see what I'm saying? But those Moabites and them Amorites couldn't come into the temple. Now it come to pass when they had heard the law that they separated themselves from Israel, all the mixed multitude. You know what I'm saying? But that's like now. The Babylonians, they rule by mixing. The Babylonians rule by mixing, And that's what the word Babylon means, to mix. You see what I'm saying? The word Babylon means to mix. And sure enough, that's what they trying to do in our last days, get us mixed up with everybody. So your blessings and your heritage can be washed away. See, if they can mix us up and get us mixed real good before we get free, then it's going to have all kind of consequences later on, because the mixed people going to share a heritage. The mixed people going to share a heritage with our oppressors. And we ain't going to want to put their lights out because they going to be, mixed with us. You see what I'm saying? Well, that's what the devil doing now. You know what I'm saying? He trying to fix it where you don't never come back into heritage. But the Creator going to defeat all his plans. All his plans. You know what I'm saying? That's like to mix. Confusion by mixing is what Babylon mean. Confusion by mixing. And that's what they did with the exiles. They was trying to mix them up real bad like they doing now. That's like they got that so-called fake prince up in England and married that mixed girl, Markel, and how they trying to use her as a image to show to the so-called black women to emulate, to follow her and be like her, and you'll have a prince in a happy ending. Subliminally marry a Caucasian or somebody outside your tribe and your ethnic group. You know what I'm saying? They got all kind of ways. And the Babylonian scribes, who we abandon our heritage to, control the mixed people, and they've been controlling the world like that ever since Babylon was Babylon. You see what I'm saying? And those the same people we abandon our heritage to, the Babylonian scribes, that got our heritage. And they destroyed the exiles. And they was in the temple too. Alright, now it come to pass, Now it come to pass when they had heard the law that they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude. And before this, Elishib, the priest, having the oversight of the chamber of the house of our Yah, was allied unto Tobiah, and he had prepared for him a great chamber where aforetime they had laid the meat offerings, the frankincense, in the vessels, in the tents of the corn, the new wine, the oil, which was commanded to be given to the Levites, the singers, and the porters. You see what I'm saying? So them folks was in the temple. Nehemiah chased him out, but they was there. They had books. They got our books, and they start writing history, false history. You see what I'm saying? And that's like when Jesus went to Egypt as a kid, Jesus would have seen images of the Ptolemies and the Greek Roman, the Greek kings of Egypt, because all the black images that they got in the museums, they had to dig them up or go into a tomb that has been closed since then to now, since the time that Pharaoh died around about 3,000 years ago to recently. Then you get the black statues and artifacts of them black folks. But before then, man, they had Roman, Greek pharaohs and stuff that they had their images. And this is what Jesus would have seen. And when Jesus went to Egypt in 332 BC, the Greeks had took Egypt over for 300 years, 332 years. So when Jesus went there, he wouldn't have seen nothing but Caucasians, white folks, Greeks, Romans. You see what I'm saying? And we know that the Romans took Egypt over in 20 BC. So when Jesus went there, it wouldn't have been nothing but some white folks. And they had chased all the black peoples away. You see what I'm saying? That's like this image right here. The Ptolemies. You know what I'm saying? That's a Ptolemy. You know what I'm saying? And his descendants would claim Israelite heritage. And they invited the Edomites from the promised land to come to Egypt, Alexandria, to translate the books. Those 70 Edomites and stuff. And then I got proof that during Jesus' time, her temple was controlled by Edomites. Sosa ben Israel. Man, it was a whole Sosa ben Judah. Man, it was quite a few of them devils. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna pull up some of their names. And you know, them folks held the promised land during During Jesus' time, the Amorites did. Okay. Yeah, we'll pull that up in a minute. Let me see. Let's see if I get to it real quick. And then we'll show some of them Edomites during Jesus' time that they held the promised land. You know what I'm saying? They held control of it during Jesus' time. Alright, so one of the guys, Jacob ben Sosa. Jacob ben Sosa was one of them. Simon ben Cuthela, Simon bar Gora. All of those were Edomites. All those were Edomites that held control of Herd temple. You know, that's like Hebrews think that Herd was a Hebrew, or that temple was the temple that the exiles from Babylon had. No, Herd took that temple completely down, and built a new temple. You see what I'm saying? And built a new temple. That's what Herd did, a totally complete new temple. And you Hebrews think that was the second temple. That was a third temple that Herd built. You see what I'm saying? And Herd was an Edomite, and the Edomites got our land when the Sephardists. Let me show their history, and these would be the people in the New Testament as scribes along with Ashkenazi. You know, Ashkenazi gonna have the synagogues and the Sephardi Jews. I turn right to it. All praise be Almighty Yah. All right, this 722. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and from Cuddar and from Ava and from Hamath and from Sepharvaim and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they dwelt in Samaria, in the city thereof. So if these people there and then them other tribes that I named that rolled up, then the exiles you couldn't tell who they were because there was so many other people in the land. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, I know for sure that the Greeks destroyed them. And then the next books after Ezra and Nehemiah gonna be Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Those 5 prophets. Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Those 5 prophets covered the exiles that come from Babylon. If you read their books, you know, I ain't got time to read all the books, but if you read their books, you will see that those Hebrews were wicked and that they had to be cut off. They had to be cut off. It's impossible for them not to be cut off when the prophet Jeremiah said this, because we couldn't have no 2 covenants. And I'm going to show you that they were still under a covenant. All right, let me see, Jeremiah 31. All right, man, here go Jeremiah 31. All right, behold, the days come, said the Elohim, that I will sow. Let me see. Behold, the days come, said the Elohim, that I will make the house of. Excuse me. Behold, the days come, said the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was a husband unto them, said the Elohim. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, said the Elohim. I will put my law in their inward parts, and will write it in their heart, and will be their Yah, and they shall be my people, and they shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know the Elohim, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, for I will forgive their iniquity. So there the Creator said that he'll give us a whole new covenant, but I can show you that the exiles were still up under the old covenant. You see what I'm saying? When they came home from Babylon, they was up under the old covenant. They couldn't mate or do nothing with nobody. They couldn't mate. And then if you get to the book of Haggai, this is going to be 520 BC, and as you read it, and then you get to verse 2, and it says, according to the word that I covenanted with you when you come out of Egypt, so my spirit remained among you, fear not. So the exiles were still up under covenant law from Moses. You see what I'm saying? And they couldn't mix a past heritage over to none of the enemies that the Creator told us to destroy. But yet that was happening. That's why the Greeks come in and destroyed them. You see what I'm saying? Ashkenaz had already sit there. It's possibly that all the other folks got rid of the exiles too, because the history ends in 420 BC, the book of Malachi, and then you get blank history for 500 years. 187,000 days went by. 187,000. Can you comprehend how many days that is? 187,000 days went by, and then they come with this God's son who prayed and worshiped in synagogues with Ashkenazi and recruited them and got you Hebrews saying, those are the synagogue of Satan, who say they are Jews but are not. Not knowing that they was talking about Ashkenazi and those synagogues that had settled in the Discopolis cities, because it wasn't no Hebrews there. And when you Hebrews say, well, Paul was a Hebrew because he was Greek and from the tribe of Benjamin. Man, you people is pure green. Green is all outdoors. Green is that dude's shirt. I'm saying he got on with the beard and stuff. Green is him. Green is that shirt. For the simple reason that they was talking about the Ashkenazi that had settled in the promised land, that had synagogues. About 380 of them was wrapped around her Edomite temple. You see what I'm saying? So it was some division of that. Some of them Edomites was with it and some of them wasn't. Jesus was trying to be a savior to them. So he went to the Ashkenazi in their synagogues and tried to teach them the way that his folks had learned from the Tanakh. You see what I'm saying? Because the Jews had the Tanakh. I already showed you that they was in the temple during Nehemiah time. And then when them exiles got destroyed from Babylon, as prophet Jeremiah had said, that they would be like a teal tree that was eaten up. You know what I'm saying? And as a teal tree is all by itself. Like I showed you that the exiles was all by themselves in Jerusalem, where they was destroyed so fast that it didn't left no history. It left no history, and that's why you Hebrews are confused by the New Testament. And then you'll take the Jewish books that's outside the Tanakh that the Jews tried to fill their history with and say, well, this what happened. This is what happened. You Hebrews are pure green. But the Israelite Brotherhood got you, because y'all are us and we all in this together. What happened to y'all happened to us. You see what I'm saying? So the Israelite Brotherhood gonna show you some truth. You see what I'm saying? Not to be saving you, but to be saving us. You see what I'm saying? Because we all in this together. You see what I'm saying? Shalom. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Israel being Israel. You know, I'm trying to bring some clarity to the heritage, because you know the Babylonian scribes, you know, got the history and the people messed up, you know what I'm saying, by the history that they put out. You know what I'm saying? Walking around believing in one of them. That's sad. But we're gonna get it together. Remember, Tigerness the Great. This is how you defeat the New Testament. Tigerness the Great took thousands of Jews to Armenia, and none of them was black. And this was like a sample of the population. You see what I'm saying? A sample of the population, and they was taken to Armenia, and none of them was black. See what I'm saying? So they killed the New Testament off the top. Right there is no way to get around that. It's no way to get around Tigerness took those Jews to Armenia, and none of them was black. And this was a sample of the promised land. And he didn't just say, well, I'm going to just take all the white ones and leave the black ones. See what I'm saying? He grabbed anybody he can grab. And they was gone.